Hey guys, it's Nevada. Welcome back to my channel. As you can see from the title down below, this is a video primarily based on my vet school experience. I think it's going to be kind of long, so what I'm planning on doing is kind of filming it in parts. So what I'm going to be talking about right now is how I got into vet school and basically my journey leading up to vet school. I know that a lot of people are interested in it, and I think that it's really going to be helpful for some people. I know that I would have loved to have someone telling me more when I was applying because there really isn't enough information out there. There's a lot that people don't know, and it would be helpful to know if you're in high school or in college or thinking about vet school for any reason. So I have a little notebook here that I basically wrote down my thoughts, and hopefully I can get them out in a organized manner. You guys know I blabber a lot, so I am so sorry in advance if this video doesn't go the way I plan it to. To throw a disclaimer out there, I just want to say that this is my personal experience. This is in no way like a given template that you have to follow to get into vet school. This is just how I did it. I think that it may be useful as like a guide to help you figure out what to do, but don't feel like, you have to do everything I did, or that by doing everything I did, there's like a surefire chance of getting in. So starting from the beginning, I have always loved animals. Literally from childhood. My mom also had a little animal lover side. She used to take care of homeless dogs when she was younger, so I think that's where I got it from. But I've always loved animals. I think the main thing for someone to figure out when going to vet school is whether it's simply just a love for animals or is it more than that. Because I think it took me that I had to figure out, I didn't want to just pet animals because then I could just get a pet. I really did want to help them. So it was a little bit more than just love. It was kind of this eagerness to do work for them in a way. So this feeling, this confirmation that I wanted to work from animals was obviously derived from my love for animals, and I figured this out at a very young age. I started volunteering at a shelter. It was a rescue agency at age 10. I think they definitely have increased the age. By now it's a lot harder for people to be able to volunteer, and I've definitely noticed that. But when I was 10, it was fine. They wanted me to volunteer, and I was actually there every weekend for literally 7 years. And I wasn't allowed to really work with the animals. I was a 10-year-old when I was starting off. So what they made me do was clean cages. So the first, I want to say 3 to 4 years, all I did every weekend was clean cages, but it gave me a chance to kind of bond with the animals and get that opportunity that I was kind of craving because my parents at that time didn't want any pets. Obviously, as I grew older, I was given more responsibilities, and I also became aware of kind of the adversity that was going on from a shelter point of view, the income of animals, people abandoning their animals, stray cats, dogs. So that kind of turned on a switch for me about the focus I wanted my animal career to kind of go in. And aside from this, I was also a fanatic of the show Animal Cops. I feel like I was probably way too young to start watching that, but I did, and I really wanted to be that person on that show saving an animal in the time of need. So yeah, so that was my first major thing. And keep in mind that this was not for resume purposes. This is not something to put on a college application or anything. I was in middle school, so it really was just because I wanted to put out my time to do so. The second thing, and I think that this is super important, is that I started working at an animal hospital. In fact, through both high school and college combined, I worked at 2 different animal hospitals for a total of 6 years, I want to say. And so this is your basic technician work where I actually got to work in appointments, help out the doctor, animal restraint, learning simple techniques here and there. And it was a really good experience. And this is one of those things that vet schools would like to see, that basically you put yourself out there and you went and you tried to balance a job that was devoted to animals, or at least in the field that you supposedly are focused in. And, we're kind of able to balance that with your education. So the reason that I say that getting this kind of experience is very important before college itself, in my opinion, again, this doesn't, it's not mandatory, it's not required, nothing like that. I just think that it's really important because for me, it made me realize what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. Obviously, your career is something that you wake up to every single day. It shouldn't be temporary, so it should be something that you love to do. And I actually did this in my Get to Know Me video. I started blabbering because I so firmly believe that your job should be something that you want to do and it's a passion for you. I started working at a general private practice, 2 of them, and I started to notice that that's not what I wanted. That's not what I saw myself doing every single day. Basically, working in an animal hospital setting made me realize that, come to that understanding. It made me figure out what I wanted and what I didn't want. And I think that's really helpful for any profession, really. I don't think it's just applicable to vet school. I think if you're applying into med school or if you want to go into computers or engineering or something, I think it's great to work, volunteer, shadow, intern, not just to put on your resume and put on an application, but because it'll help you figure out if that's really what you see yourself doing. So having said that I didn't like private practice, that didn't deter me from vet school itself. It simply made me realize that I want to do more of like nonprofit, rescue, everything I've mentioned before, like shelter medicine, animals of abuse, cruelty, negligence, welfare, all of that. So I knew that there was a way to reach that. I wasn't sure how to yet, but it still involved vet school because I didn't want to be the person on Animal Cops that rescues the animal and like drops them off at the vet. I wanted to be that vet that in that moment of time needed to like save that animal's life. Something similar to that was my idea. I think experience is very important, not just for application purposes, but for you as a person to figure out what you want to do. I know it's getting harder and harder to like get positions like this, but be really annoying and don't feel bad asking the same person like a bunch of times. So if you're a high school student, I would say that the number one thing that you have to focus on right now is grades. If you're applying to vet school, basically if grad school is your focus, your grades have to be like up here. Vet school especially looks 100% at your grades first and then moves on to other things to maybe balance it out. But if you have good grades, like you're pretty much good. And so when I say this is important in high school, I mean because it kind of forces you to build a habit. So if you're getting all A's in high school, you're more inclined to continue that habit and work towards those A's in college, where they definitely 100% matter into getting you into vet school. And so that doesn't only apply to like your school grades, this also applies to standardized tests. So SATs, GREs, really put the work in, study for them. Another reason that I stress about grades is because it definitely helps with getting into college. When you're applying to college, like if anyone is getting ready to apply into college and their goal is vet school or any grad school, in my opinion, I don't think that your focus should be getting into some like huge Ivy League school. I went to Rutgers University, which is my state school of New Jersey, and absolutely no regrets. As long as you find a school that has the right programs for you and is obviously one of a good reputation, I don't think you need to be worried about going to an Ivy League school, this and that. I think if you're planning on applying to vet school or any type of grad school, your main priority should be getting some money. I think, especially with vet school, like your goal should be scholarships and not like the title of your school. That is actually how it worked out for me. Vet school is expensive AF, like beyond comprehension. I was lucky enough to get a scholarship for undergrad. I got a full scholarship. It's the presidential scholarship to Rutgers University. So that covered room, board, tuition, everything. So like literally paid zero to go to college. And I was able to live there on campus and I had a really great time. And the main reason, the way that this happened was because I did well in high school. And I promise you, it's literally just grades. Obviously helped that I was in state, so I'm sure that that was a factor. But I did really well in high school and I got a really good SAT score at the time. I think kids are really doing well now, but I think I got a 2300 out of 2400. And then in high school, I don't really know if GPAs existed in high school, but I, for the most part, got A's in everything. And again, you know, it didn't come easily. It took a lot of studying, obviously. It was well worth it in the end because I didn't have to pay anything for college and I was able to save that and put it towards vet school where it really mattered. I guess what I'm just trying to say is like, don't be too stressed out about trying to get into like an Ivy League school or like one that you have to throw so much money at. If you're planning on going to grad school anyway, apply for as many scholarships as you can. I think I also got an IBM scholarship because my dad works for IBM, and so always make sure that you're like doing everything possible. So that also meant that I had like a scholarship from the school, and then I also had money to spend now through the IBM scholarship. So get good grades, do well on your SATs, and try to kind of dip your toes in some kind of animal experience just so you know that you're gonna be on the right path and you don't waste like how many ever years of college to do something that you're not really interested in. Also, quick note, I don't know how much of a factor this was, but in high school, I think my sophomore year, summer after sophomore year, I ended up going to Tufts Veterinary School for their AVM summer program. It's Adventures in Veterinary Medicine. It was a great, fun experience. It was 2 weeks, and it basically just kind of opened you up to all the aspects of veterinary medicine in that 2-week field, from like surgery to other specializations. I had a great time. It was a lot of fun. I met a lot of cool people, many of them who are already in vet school or getting into vet school, so it doesn't hurt to get that kind of experience either, but it was a summer program that I applied for and then I had to pay for. So moving on to college. If you are in college and you are planning on applying to vet school, again, number one rule, you have to be getting good grades. You have to be getting good grades, or you have to be showing improvement or something along those lines. Grades are so important. It seems unfair, and I totally agree because I felt this way too, that it's such a objective way to judge people, because you could have an entirely full encompassing love for animals, and like if you're not getting the right grades, then you don't deserve to go to vet school. I don't understand that, but at the same time, it is what it is. And if you really, really do want to get into the field, you just got to do what you're told to do. You know, we're not really in a position to change the education system, I guess. So in college, your number one responsibility is to get good grades. And I'm talking like A's and B's in everything, because vet school is so competitive to get into. And I know a lot of people know this, but a lot of people don't. When you compare it, vet school is like relatively harder than medical school to get into, and it's simply because there's like 150 medical schools or something, and I think there's 26 or 28 veterinary schools. So when you're just looking at the pool of applicants, it's so much harder to get into vet school. You have less of a chance just because there are less vet schools. Grades are really important because they kind of use that as a weed out system. So if you're really not getting optimal grades, you're like immediately weeded out before they get a chance to look at maybe other stuffs that would truly define you as a good vet school candidate. Obviously, for vet school in college, you have to do all your pre-vet requirements. I would like to say, if you are very serious about vet school, you should go ahead right now and figure out what schools you might be interested in and see what their requirements are, because I did find out that when I was applying, there were a lot of variations in what different schools required. What also helped me in that sense is that I graduated as a biological science major instead of like animal science. My school did offer animal science as its own major, but I decided to do biology and then minor in animal science. And I think that helped me out a lot because it already covered a lot of the pre-requirements, because I guess that's focused towards med school. And I ended up not having to like struggle to like pick up extra requirements. I, for the most part, had everything set. I think one of the things I had to take that I didn't know one of the schools I was applying to required was like creative writing or public speaking or something like that. So it's always good to like go check what courses you need for vet school and then make sure that you get those done in a timely manner in college and get good grades in them. I think planning ahead is so important. It helped me a lot. I ended up finishing everything that I needed to for vet school and just to graduate a semester early, and I think I only had like 6 credits left my spring semester of senior year. So spring semester of senior year, I was taking 1 class, or was it 2 classes? I don't know. Compared to like 5 or 6 that you would usually take, I was taking 1 or 2 classes, and I was still getting my scholarship, but they had this little cool rule that if you're a senior and you're only part-time, they would refund you back your tuition money. So whatever I'm not using up from my tuition scholarship, I would just get back in cash. So I was your like crazy second semester senior who was literally getting paid to just like live in college and have a good time. So it definitely helps to work your butt off. It pays off in the end. College is a great time to be getting some research experience, some clinical experience, working on getting recommendation letters from professors or from people of value. So for me, starting my animal hospital experience in high school was great because I got great recommendation letters from the vets I was working with, and they had about like 6 to 8 years to actually get to know me. So I know that they wrote me wonderful recommendation letters. And I'm not your like go to class type of girl, and I hate saying that on camera, but I'm not. I just don't learn that way. It is a waste of time for me. It's like that still in vet school. In college, lectures aren't really recorded. At Rutgers, they weren't, at least, and I still didn't go to class. I just literally taught myself. Like I had a PowerPoint or a book and I taught myself, and that worked for me. And now in vet school, it's a lot different. The type of like learning is different. You still have like PowerPoints, but you kind of need your professor's lectures to kind of understand and conceptualize everything. I still don't go to class, but I listen to the lectures because they're recorded, and I don't skip a single one. I just listen to them either on double speed, or like I can pause and rewind and go back and take notes. I can tell you straight up that like being in class and sitting in class does not work for me, and I hate that I would like waste my time by doing that. But in any case, in college, what is difficult about that is that like you don't really get a good recommendation letter. So for college, the best way to get a recommendation letter from a professor is by actually working with them or, you know, doing research with them or something like that, so you get a more personal letter. My recommendation letters from college, there were a few professors that were just like, if you're in like the top 5 of the class or something, then you'll get a recommendation letter, email me. And that's what I did. They weren't really personalized. I think they just probably said I was a good student and I got good grades, something like that, something probably very general and vague. But that didn't hurt me because I had like these deeply personal rec letters from the vets that I worked with. Research is another thing. For some reason, that's on like everyone's requirement list. I hate research. I will probably never do research in my life, but I had to kind of BS it in college for the sake of putting it on my application. I'll be completely honest with that. Like, you gotta do things sometimes that you don't want to do. And for me, research was one of them. So like my senior year, me and a group of like 2 people try to do this weird like catching pigeons to count how many lice were on them. It was like a failed research attempt, but I did it and it went on my resume and it counts as research, so that's that. So all of this aside, it probably sounds like I put in a lot of work to get into vet school, and I promise you I did, but that doesn't mean I didn't have fun. Everyone who knows me in college knows that I partied a lot, more than that was necessary. Even my parents know that. So I think it's all about being able to balance it. I think that's the most important part. If I were trying to get good grades and working in college and not having a good time on the other side, I would have been really upset. You just kind of have to find out what a good balance is. You have to be responsible, have your fun. You have to, it's college. I can 100% say I did not sacrifice my fun at all, but I also put like a lot of work into studying. So don't be scared that like it's like fun is unattainable if you're trying to get into vet school or med school or something like that. It's all on you. You put in the work and you kind of reap the benefits of it, and if you learn how to balance properly, you can do both. You'll be fine. Believe it or not, hobbies are huge to put on your resume, and they look really great on applications because people basically want you to be able to do everything. They ask way too much of you, and you just have to prove that you can do it. So yeah, they want you to get the good grades, but then they also want to know, well, we don't want her studying 24/7. We want to know that she's also doing other stuff and able to balance it. They do ask it, and I also think hobbies are really good for mental health. So I was on Rutgers Natya, which was like our collegiate competitive dance team. We danced by the Natyam, and that was a huge hobby for me, and it really did keep me sane, and it was a lot of fun, and it was a great like side activity. Again, going out and partying is a hobby. Like, you need to have your mental health to do that. Hanging out with friends, hanging out with family. I was so close to home at Rutgers, I basically went home every single weekend, and it was great. That was like an amazing way for me to kind of like de-stress, and I loved it. After college, or some point junior year, summer, you have to apply to vet school. Grades, I feel like I've said that a million times, but your next set of grades come from your GRE scores. GREs are basically your more advanced version of the SATs, and do well on them. Like, there's no reason that you shouldn't. It's a relatively straightforward test. As long as you study enough and you practice enough, you should be fine, and it'll definitely put you up there if you get a good grade. For my GREs, I want to say I studied about like a good month nonstop. So that's a few hours every single day, and I took a ton of practice tests. And I don't know what the scores are out of. I think if it was like out of 170, I got like a 163, give or take like 1 point on one of the sections. So it was like math and English, and I think it was like 163 or 162 on the other one. And then I don't think the writing section really counted for vet school. So I did really well on my GREs, and then graduating college, I graduated summa cum laude with a GPA of 3.9 something. That was obviously really good. I got a few B's along the way. It's not the end of the world, but it definitely, I think, put me up there when it came to the applicant pool for vet school. It was easy for me to not be weeded out. So that's why I'm saying make your life easier and just get good grades. Work hard, get good grades, so you're not stressing about this application process, because believe me, it's so stressful, and I only applied to 3 schools. So going back to this whole vet school application, there's only about 26, 27, 28, something like that, vet schools in our country. It's not like unheard of to apply to all of them just to increase your chances of getting into one. So I know some people do that because that's just how much they want to be a vet, and I get that. For me, I knew that one way or another I could incorporate animal work into my life. I knew that vet school was a great way to do it because I wanted to be in the medical aspect of it because I'm a huge science lover and I loved everything related to medicine, and science classes were the easiest for me. So I definitely wanted it to be veterinary medicine. I wanted to be the doctor, but for some reason it wasn't a driving factor that I was going to apply to every single vet school. I guess this isn't the best advice to give because it may come off like I was slacking, but this is my personal experience. These are my personal thoughts, and for me, I decided that I would only go to a vet school that was within driving distance of my family because that's how much my family meant to me. I get very homesick. I'm a super homebody, and I knew that I possibly would not be able to be happy if I wasn't close to them. So that made my selection or choices very, very, very little. Out of the 28, the only ones that are driving distance to me were Cornell, Tufts, and Penn. And that was pretty much it. And Ohio State, I think. So with those as my options, I literally applied to 3. I applied to Penn, Cornell, and Tufts. And that was my reasoning for it. I just didn't think that I would want to be anywhere else for the 4 years of vet school. So I think in that sense, it's really important to be honest to yourself. If you're going to go to vet school and not be happy there for any other reason, you shouldn't. It's a huge deal. It's a very stressful time. I can tell you that. It's not easy. And I think it applies for a lot of grad schools, not just vet school. I think a lot of other things should factor into your decision rather than just getting into that school. Mental happiness is a huge deal for me. I think you should consider it when you're applying. So that being said, I applied to those 3 schools and I got into all 3, which I think to this day is still one of my biggest accomplishments, and I'm really happy about that. I'm really proud of myself, and I really did work my butt off to get here. I had the opportunity to be able to choose and pick which one I wanted to go to, and again, the final deciding factor for me was distance. When you're applying to vet school, I think there's a lot of things that you should keep in mind of. The city that your vet school is in, or the one that you want to go to, because that affects not only your mental health, like I was saying, but also it affects the kind of experience you're going to get. If you're in more of a city neighborhood, you're going to have a larger small animal caseload, while if you go somewhere that's more farmland type of place, you're going to have a higher large animal caseload. Most vet schools are really good with still incorporating a good amount of both into their curriculum, but obviously there are certain advantages and disadvantages. Also, when applying to vet school, definitely do your research on what certain schools are known for, what certain schools do best, what programs are offered at certain schools, what programs are not offered. It's really important to kind of know what you want to do, because once vet school starts rolling, it's all about just studying and getting the grades. So it's kind of nice to have a plan. That being said, there are so many people in vet school that don't know what they're doing. A lot of people that get into vet school are people that also changed their mind somewhere along the way. They probably went to med school and thought it wasn't for them, or they did something like journalism for a few years and then all of a sudden decided they want to go to vet school. We personally have people like that in our class that vet school was not on the radar at all until they applied. But this comes in with the fact that they were still diligent, they were still dedicated, responsible, got good grades, showed that they were good candidates even though they weren't focused on vet school initially. And I can't tell you that I definitively know what I'm doing. I have an idea, and I hope that eventually that path will pave itself. But yeah, not everyone's got it figured out. So these are just kind of recommendations of something that might help you, and it may not help you at all. So that's totally okay. So yeah, applying to vet school, again, we said was mainly grades, and then another huge thing is your personal statement and how you answer the endless application, if anyone's done that yet. It is so long. My personal statement itself, I have about 9 different versions of it, and the final version I re-edited for at least 2 weeks, and I am still to this day so happy with my personal statement, and I think it really fully tells the story of who I am, what I want to do with my life, and how I plan to get there. So your personal statement is really, really important. Don't push that off to the last minute. It is always helpful to just jot things down whenever you're feeling them, and then you can incorporate it into an essay later. The huge key is always, always, always review and edit and have people go over it and have other people go over it, and then you go over it a million more times, because that's just how important it is. I never did that for college, I'll be honest. I didn't have anyone read my essay for college. I don't think I spent nearly as much time on it. I didn't feel like I had that much banking on it. But for vet school, it is so important, and you really want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward, because that's the only thing they're going to read of you before deciding whether they want to choose you over like the thousands of other people. It's super expensive to apply to vet school, so don't waste money if you're not putting like your best out there. I think that is where I want to end this video. It's kind of like a how to get into vet school. I know I started this YouTube thing as like a makeup channel, but I am so happy that I have like people reaching out to me about vet school and about animals, because that really is where my true passion lies. So I am totally all for helping you guys, giving you advice, and just kind of pushing you towards that path. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I just want to quickly summarize everything I said just to make sure I didn't miss anything. But basically, if you're younger than high school, make sure that you love animals. Do some reading, watch some videos, get yourself out there and like make sure this is what you want to do, but you have nothing to stress about. For high school students, get good grades. Get yourself a scholarship to college, because nothing else is really that important at that time, especially when you're going to go to grad school and you know you're just going to be taking like money out of your pocket and handing it to your grad school, which is what I'm doing. And I'm actually taking it from the bank and then handing it, and I'll pay the bank back later. I feel like your #1 goal should be getting a scholarship of some sort. Save as much money as you can, especially because we know like a veterinary salary is not ideal. For the amount of education you put into it and the time and money you spend on your education, you don't get enough back. So I don't really think that you should be so like very concerned about where you go to undergrad and that kind of like title. I think you should focus on getting a scholarship, and that comes with good grades. So high school, grades, SATs, get experience, because it tells you what you want to do. It gives you kind of like a visual of what you want to do. In college, get good grades. If, let's say, you're not doing too well right now, make that your goal. It's like a new year. Make it your goal to improve yourself, because getting good grades and showing improvement is very important for these kinds of applications. The next thing would be extracurriculars, because you just have to. So go work in an animal hospital, with a rescue agency, with a shelter, with a professor, do research. Show that you're willing to put in the effort for something like this. Also have fun, enjoy college. Like, don't ever feel like you would regret not having a good time in college. If you're in college and you're applying to vet school, please be mindful of what schools you're applying to. Do you have the right requirements for them? Does that school give you what you need to spend 4 years there? Does it help your future in any way? And I think that's pretty much it. So I hope this helped you. I would love to talk more about it, and I think I'll plan what my next video will be. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and give this video a thumbs up, pretty please. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.